Crime is not homogeneous. Certain ethnic groups perpetuate far more crimes than others. This is not a comfortable thing to talk about. It would be better if it didn't exist, but it does. If we ignore it, then we end up with West Yorkshire Police not investigating certain gangs for 30 years. So talk about it we must. If we don't acknowledge a problem, we can never solve it. I should say many of the stats I quote here are from the United States, but we have very similar social problems. There's no reason to think we're terribly different. The UK government is quite reticent to publish figures for some inexplicable reason. In the US, white men commit 3.5 murders per 100,000 of the population. For Hispanics, the figure climbs to 11.9, and for black males, the figure is 64.4. Black males are 18 times more murderous than white males. This is absolutely astonishing. It's well known and well understood that men typically are more violent than women. We commit more violent crimes and generally have higher testosterone. There are far more men in prison than women. No one would seriously dispute this. But even black females at a rate of 5.8 murders per 100,000 outperform white males. We have to ask ourselves, why is this, and not make excuses? Setting aside the giant social cost of all this criminality, many murders in the black community are young black men killing other young black men. Next, we're going to talk about something which we have to be a bit coy about because YouTube doesn't like certain words. So let's say enforced physical relations where only one of the two parties consented, if you see what I'm driving at. In a typical year, black men enforce physical relations on white women by the thousand. However, between 2003 and 2008, white men enforced physical relations on black women a grand total of 0 occasions. It never happened in 6 years across the whole of the United States. That's amazing. Something's clearly going on here. Now, it's true black women are the least desirable partners according to data from various dating sites. Again, don't hate the data, it's just the reality. And in case you think this is some kind of Eurocentric view, we can see that Asian women are typically the most popular women to date overall. But it's more than the general unattractiveness of black women. Something else is going on. Perhaps in mental health. It seems like every time there's a high-profile murder or violent robbery or stabbing in the UK, the authorities are falling over themselves to say, no, it's not terror-related. This fellow wasn't a jihadi, he's mentally ill. So perhaps we also look at the rates of mental health in black and white communities and compare and contrast. The BBC published some stats from the NHS showing that typically around 60 white people per 100,000 are detained under the Mental Health Act. The figure for black people is around 300 per 100,000. Given that we know mental health can cause outbreaks of mania and rage, perhaps we ought to screen for this before granting asylum. If we did, Grace O'Malley, Kumar, Barnaby Webber, Ian Coates, Wayne Broadhurst and countless others would still be alive today. So I'm forced to wonder, is diversity really our strength? We've seen black people are 18 times more murderous. They're 5 times the rate of mental illness, and their fondness for coerced physical relations is not a problem which exists reciprocally. Let's also consider they're not net taxpayers, and so they're a permanent drain on the exchequer. As white people, we neither expect nor get any gratitude for this, but I'm sensing a lot of hostility which doesn't seem entirely justified. No, I'm really starting to think that homogeneity might be our strength, and diversity is simply bringing vastly increased criminality to our shores at great cost. Perhaps we should stop the imports.
If you like this, please like, recommend and subscribe.